Good day everyone, this is the Module 8 of Statistical Analysis for Industrial Engineering. So this is about inferential statistics or test of hypothesis for samples, 2 samples na, okay, concerning means. Kasi nakaraan, 1 sample lang. So for the introduction, this module is relatively simple extension to two samples of the 1 sample testing. Kasi yun nga yung pinag-aralan natin sa nakaraang module. So we now investigate experiments in which we wish to determine whether the means of 2 populations are equal. So dito, i-investigate natin kung yung means ba ng dalawang population ay equal. So the data will consist of 2 samples, 1 from each population. Siyempre, kukuha na natin ng sample from each population. So populations can have equal variances, but if we are not certain, assume that these variances are unequal before proceeding to the hypothesis testing. Okay, so bago nga tayo magtungo sa hypothesis test, dapat ma-assume natin, okay, yung variances ng mga population na yun ay unequal. So it is sometimes better to design a 2-sample experiment so that each item in one sample is paired with an item in the other. Kasi mainam nga yun kung may comparison tayong gagawin. In this case, we present a method for testing hypothesis involving the difference between 2 populations. The population means on the basis of such paired data. So magpe-pairing tayo ng data. This hypothesis testing is called the paired t-test, in which the test procedure would then consist of analyzing the differences between the paired data. So yun yung gagamitin natin guys, kaya gagamit tayo ng t-table. Kasi paired t-test yung gagamitin natin. So objectives, after careful study of this module, you should be able to do the following. First, structure comparative experiments involving means of 2 samples and mean of paired samples as hypothesis test. So kailangan alam natin yung structure nun. So test hypothesis and construct confidence intervals on the difference in means of 2 normal distributions and mean of paired samples. So magte-test of hypothesis tayo. Then use p-value approach for making decisions in hypothesis test on the difference in means of 2 normal distribution and mean of paired samples. So nagre-reference tayo sa probability value nila. Explain the use of the relationship between confidence interval and hypothesis test. So kailangan ma-explain natin on the difference in means of 2 normal distribution and mean of paired samples. Okay? So, sa lesson proper, first is yung mean of 2 samples, variances known. So, alam natin yung variances ng mga samples na yon. So, engineers and scientists are often interested in comparing 2 different conditions to determine whether either condition produces a significant effect on the response that is observed. Okay, so ganun nga pag nag-experiment, kailangan ma-prove yung mga responses, okay, kung significant ba sila. So these conditions are sometimes called as treatments. So yun ina-apply sa mga experiment, yung mga treatments. So assumptions for 2 sample inference. So meron tayong mga assumptions. Yung x sub 1, x sub 1, 2 hanggang x sub 1n is a random sample from population. Okay, so, yan yung ina-assume. Tapos, x sub 2, 1, x sub 2, hanggang x sub 2n, random sample din siya. So, ina-assume natin, guys, na random yung pagkuha natin ng sample kung bakit hindi natin pinili para maiwasan yung bias na tinatawag. So, the 2 populations represented by x sub 1 and x sub 2 are independent. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila nakaka-apekto sa isa't isa. Okay? So, both populations are normal. So, normal distributed kasi gagamit nga tayo ng normal t-distribution. So, sampling distribution of the differences of 2 averages. So, if independent samples of size n sub 1 and n sub 2 are drawn at random, kasi nga dalawa yung population, n sub 1, n sub 2, so kailangan random from 2 populations, discrete or continuous with means mu sub 1 and mu sub 2, and variances sigma squared and sigma sub 1 squared. So, yun, tagdadalawa lagi guys kasi dalawa yung population natin eh. Respectively, then the sampling distribution of the differences of means. So ito, ma-minus yung mga samples nila or yung x bars nila is approximately normal distributed with mean and variance given by ayan yung mu sub x sub 1 minus x. So equals daw guys. Okay? Pati yung sa sigma. Ayan o, pinag-plus lang yung sigma. Okay? So yun yung sampling distribution. Based on the assumption and estimators, the quantity, so ito yung formula ng z value, okay, has a normal distribution. Kasi pag sinabi mong z, normal distribution lagi yan. Next, yung confidence interval naman. Two-sided confidence interval. Ayan, dalawang side yun. Isa may minus, isa naman plus. Okay? Kasi merong ang left tsaka right nung part nung distribution. Tapos, one-sided lower confidence interval, yung isang side lang. Okay? Sa kaliwa, o kaya, upper. Pag upper kasi, yung sa kanan. Okay? Sa taas. So, test of hypothesis. Yan, yung HO mo, o yung null hypothesis mo. Yan, yung pagma-minus lang. Yung mu1, mu2. Okay? Tapos, value of test statistics, yan. Yung formula kanina. Kasi ito yung mga signs, okay? Sa ano nyo, sa H1 nyo, sa alternative hypothesis nyo. Tapos ito yung kakakibat na region, okay? So yan, na-discuss na yun dun sa nakaraang module. Yan, kapag less than, yan, less than din. Tapos negative yung z value. Pag greater than naman, yan, greater than din, positive yung z value. Ito pag not equal, ibig sabihin two-tailed to, merong sa kaliwa, merong sa kanan. So pwedeng kahit ano dun sa dalawa, okay? Pero merong two-tailed, ibig sabihin kukunin mo yung sa kada isang side. So p-value, it is the exact significance level of statistical test. So dyan tayo magre-refer mamaya. That is the probability of obtaining a value of the test statistic that is at least as extreme as the observed when the null hypothesis is true. So, yun yung magpapatunay kung i-reject ba natin o hindi ang null hypothesis. The smaller the p-value, the stronger the evidence that we should reject the null hypothesis. So, mas maliit yung percentage niya, mas malaki yung evidence. And therefore, the more significant the result. Okay? So, two-tailed test. Ayan. Yan yung gagawin natin mamaya sa formula. Pag two-tailed yan, magmumultiply. Pag right-tailed test, ayan, nag-minus, minus sa 1. Pag left-tailed test, yan, di na nag-minus. Tapos ito yung mga decisions. Okay, so same lang siya guys sa nakaraang module. Yan, pag greater than, do not reject HO. Pag less than, reject HO. Pag equal, reject HO. And investigate further. Sabihin, wala kang sufficient evidence. Kaya investigate further. So, ito yung unang example. A manufacturer claims that the average tensile strength of thread A exceeds that of thread B by at least 12 kilograms. So, to test this claim, 50 pieces of each type of thread are tested under similar conditions. So, nakikita nyo na agad yung mga given. So, type A thread had an average, type A thread, so yung type A na thread had an average tensile strength of 86.7 kg. And the type B thread had an average of tensile strength of 77.8 kg. Test the manufacturer's claim using a 0.055 level of significance. So, assume normal distribution for each sample with a standard deviation of 6.28 kg and 5.61 kg respectively. So, step 1, yan, formulate mo natin yung null hypothesis tsaka alternative. HO, yung null, I, yan, pinag-minus natin guys, yung mean, okay, mean or yung mu nung type A tsaka yung mu ng type B. So, is equal to 12 kilograms. Kasi yun yung gustong malaman kung totoo yan, kiniklaims nila. Okay? So, bakit naging ganito? Naging equals to 12. Kasi sabi at least, ayun sabi sa problem mo, at least 12 kilograms. Tapos, ito naman yung alternative hypothesis, less than siya. Okay? So, hindi siya at least 12 kilograms. Okay? So, ito, step 2, yung mga given. Okay? Yung N sub A, sabihin yung sample, number of sample ni type A thread ay 50. Tapos yung sa average niya, okay, sample mean, kunin mo yung average, given na 86.7 kg. Yung given din na ay 6.28 kilograms. Okay? Next naman is yung population, number of population naman ni or number of sample naman ni B. So 50. Tapos yung average niya, yung sample mean niya ay 77.8 kilograms. Tapos yung standard deviation niya ni B ay 5.61 kilograms. So ito guys, sigma yan na ibig sabihin, yan yung standard deviation ng population. Kasi pag small letter s, yun naman yung sa sample. Ito yung alpha, yung binigay na 0.05, sabi niya 95% confidence level. So ito yung normal na binibigay 0.05 or 95% confidence level. So ito yung z sub a niya, yan hindi na nag-divide to kasi ano lang naman to, one-tailed lang to. Okay? So kung titingnan mo yung z sub 0.05 interpolation. So ito guys, pwede niyo na itong i-record kasi matik na yan. No? Pag z sub 0.05, 1.6449 yan, kaya hindi ka na mag-interpolation. Kunin mo na yung mga madalas na given. Okay? So, step 3, substitute lang doon sa formula ng z. Okay? So, yung x sub 1, yan, x bar mo, x bar sub 2. Okay? So, ito guys, yung mu. Okay? Mu sub 0. Sabihin, ito yun, yung 12. Okay? 12 kilograms. Minus, tas over, yan yung sa sigma squared nung sigma sub 1 over n sub 1 plus sigma squared nung sigma sub 2 tsaka over n sub 2. Okay, so nakuha yung z value na negative 2.6031. So dito, ayan, kaya siya less than yan. Okay, less than yung pinili kasi dito ay yan, less than din dito sa H1 eh. Okay? Okay? So, next, gagawa natin siya ng confidence interval. Dahil nga siya ay one-tailed lang, so yung isang side lang yung gagamitin natin. Tsaka minus, kasi less than eh. Okay? Sa less than siya. So, substitute lang natin. Yan, yung x sub 1 natin, ito. X sub 2, minus yun. Plus, ito yung z sub a. Tapos, substitute lang din. So, yan, nakuha natin ngayon yung confidence interval na yung difference nila ay less than 10.8589 kg. Okay? Then, sa p-value naman, ayan, kaya, dahil nga ito ay one-tailed lang, tsaka less than, hindi siya nagma-minus ng 1. Okay? So, ang automatic na value dyan ay yung given kanina. Okay? Given na 0.05. Okay? Pero dito kasi, yung kinumpit natin yung kinuha. Ayan o. Itong 2.6031. Kinuha, negative. So, ang probability niyan, kung titingnan mo dun sa table, ito, 0.004619. Okay? Using the table. So, kailangan mo rin mag-interpolation nga dun kasi walang saktong ganitong value ng z value. Okay? So, ito yung p-value niya, ni-round up sa 4 decimal places kasi sabi dun sa instruction 4 decimal. So, ito yung pinaka-drawing niya. Ito yung na-compute natin, okay, na negative 2.6031. Ito naman yung nasa given na 1.6449. So, nasa loob siya guys ng rejection. So, mare-reject natin yung HO. Samantala, dito naman sa confidence interval, yan, mula 10.8589 kg papunta dito sa left kasi left-tailed siya, okay? Papunta sa left. So, ibig sabihin, hindi niya kasama, okay? Hindi niya kasama yung 12. So, ito na yung mga conclusion. Step 5. Since the test statistic Z, so ito, ay within the rejection region, so, we will reject the null hypothesis. Okay? Siyempre, pag na-reject mo yung null hypothesis, hindi mo i-reject yung alternative. So, since the null hypothesis, mu sub A minus mu sub B is equal to 12 kg, is not within. So, wala naman siya dun sa loob ng confidence interval eh. Kaya, reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. Tapos, yung p-value na nakuha ay less than doon sa given. Kaya, reject yung null hypothesis. So, lahat yan, evidences na yan, ay nagtutugma. Yan. We therefore need to reject the null hypothesis and not to reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 95% confident that the average tensile strength of thread A exceeds. Okay? Sabihin nito guys, ulitin mo lang yung nakalagay doon sa alternative hypothesis. Kung ano yung alternative hypothesis mo, yun yung sasabihin mo. Ayan o. Tensile strength of thread A exceeds that of thread B by less than 12 kilograms. Okay? So note that there is no two-sample z-test in Minitab 19. So guys, walang two-sample, kaya gagawin nyo ay written dito, mano-mano. So number 2 example na. A product developer is interested in reducing the drying time of a primer paint. So kung paano ba mapapatuyo yung pintura ng mabilis. So two formulations of the paint are tested. Formulation 1 is the standard chemistry and formulation 2 has a new drying ingredient. So may new yung formulation 2 that should be reduced the drying time. So ito-test niya ngayon kung affected ba yung ingredient na yun. So the experience is from experience it is known that the standard deviation of drying time is 8 minutes and this inherent variability should be unaffected by the addition of the new ingredient. So ito base dun sa mga nakaraang pagpapatuyo ng pintura, 8 minutes yung pagkakahiwa-hiwalay. Sabihin standard deviation. So same lang din naman siya dun sa bago. Kasi sabi hindi doon maapektuhan eh. So same lang siya. 10 specimens are painted with formulation 1. So yun yung sample. And another 10 specimens are painted with formulation 2. So yan yung N sub 1, N sub 2. The 20 specimens are painted in random order. Okay, so yun yung sum nilang dalawa kasi 10 plus 10, 20. The two sample average drying times are 121 minutes and 112. So yun yung mga X bars nyo. So what conclusion can the product developer draw about the effectiveness of new ingredient? Using yung alpha naman dito ay 10%. Okay? So, step 1 ulit, set yung H1 and H0 and H1. So, ano ba yung tinatanong dun sa problem? So, doon kayo magbabase. So, lagi yan, pag dalawang sample, magma-minus, equal 0 lagi yung HO, minute. So, ibig sabihin yan, yung formulation 2 does not reduce the drying time of a primer paint. Ibig sabihin, pareho lang naman sila. Okay? Sabihin, walang difference. There's no difference. Kaya, hindi effective o hindi nakaka-reduce yung formulation 2. Samantala, kapag greater than naman to, ibig sabihin, mas malaki yung nare-reduce o may nare-reduce si formulation 2 sa drying time. Okay, ng primer paint. So, yung mga given, sulat lang. And, kukunin nyo lang itong, bakit 90 yan? Kasi 10 na to eh. Okay? So, ito, kasi nga, wanted lang siya, kaya hindi na dinivide sa 2 itong 0.10. Okay? So, pwede nyo nang i-note yan, yung mga kaakibat para hindi na kayo mag-i-interpolation. Halimbawa, sa quiz nyo o exam, meron na kayo ngayong ready na mga values. Pag 0.10, ito na yun. Okay? So, substitute lang dito sa equation nya. So, dito, yung x sub 1 bar, yan, 121. X sub 2 ay 112. Okay? So, dito naman, 0 yung sa population kasi wala namang binigay eh. Okay? So, pag hindi given yung mga mu, ito yun, di ba yung mu? 0 na yun. Okay? Yan, nakuha na z value ay 2.5156. Okay? So, dito guys, bakit, yan, greater, ito yung sign niya, kaya yun yung pinili. Kasi, pagdating dito sa H1, so dito kayo lagi pipili. Di ba yung buka, or yung opening ng sign ay papunta dito sa mu1 minus mu2. Kaya yung ganun din, yung buka niya rin papunta dito. Okay? Kaya yung pinili. So, ayan, sinubstitute lang yung mga value, ito yung nakuha. 4.4148 minutes. Okay? Less than, kasi magiging greater than dito eh. Sa kanya nakaharap eh. So, sa p-value naman ay, and dahil nga, ano siya, sa right side, yan, nag-minus 1. So, yung nakuha mo ito, ang katumbas, ito yung na-compute mo dito eh. Ang katumbas na probability value niya na ito. So, ma-minus mo lang sa 1, ito yung nakuha mo. So, gagamit ka rin interpolation kasi walang saktong ganitong value. Okay, so, ang p-value ay 0.059. Ilagay natin sa drawing. So, yung rejection area dito ay dito sa 1.2816 ito. Okay? 1.2816. Tapos, syempre, si 2.5156 ay greater than kay 1.2816. Kaya nandito siya banda. Okay? So, nasa loob siya ng rejection area. Ito naman, mula dito, kasi mali nga yung computation, dapat yung greater than gagamitin din, guys. Kasi mula sa kanya, mas mataas siya dito eh. Okay? Papunta dito. So, greater than. So, hindi niya, wala sa loob to, yung mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2. So, ito na yung conclusion. Since the t-statistics z is equal to 2.5158 is within the rejection region, eh, nasa loob. Okay? So, another typo, guys, hindi 8 to, dapat 6. Okay? Kasi 6 nga yun, 6, diba? So, hindi siya 8. So, therefore, we need to reject the null hypothesis. So, reject kasi nasa rejection area. Then, yung pangalawa, hindi siya kasama doon sa confidence interval. Ito, yung mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2. Kaya reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. Tapos, yung p-value naman ay less than dun sa 0.10. Kaya reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. Okay, so based on the evidences presented, we therefore need to reject the null hypothesis and not to reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 90% confident the formulation 2 reduces the drying time of a primer pen. Ibig sabihin, yun, kasi nireject mo yung null hypothesis. So, yung sinasabi ng alternative, yun yung maging conclusion mo. Okay? Okay, so another example, marami tayong example. Example 3 na, the burning rates of two different solid fuel propellants used in aircraft systems are being studied. Kasi nga naman, dapat hindi umaapoy agad yun kasi masisira yung aeroplano, yung propellants. So, it is known that both propellants have approximately the same standard deviation of burning rate. Okay? So, approximately equal na sila. Yan, equals to 3. So, centimeters per second. The random samples of n sub 1 is equal to 20 and n sub 2 is equal to 20 specimens are tested. The sample mean burning rates are x sub 1 bar 18 centimeters per second and x sub 2 bar 24 centimeters per second. Test the hypothesis that both propellants have the same mean burning rate. So, use alpha of 0.05. So, first step, lagi yan guys, minus yan, tas equal 0 cm per second. So, sabihin niyan, both propellants have the same. Yun yung tinatanong, lagi, yun yung H mo. Yung H1 mo naman, yung kabaligtaran nito. So, wala naman sinabing less than o greater than, kaya not equal lang yun. Okay? The propellants do not have the same, okay, or not equal burning rate. So, two-tailed ito guys, kasi not equal yung H1 mo. So, sulat mo lang ulit yung mga given, tas kukunin mo itong yung Z. O, pansin nyo, dinivide na sa 2 yung alpha mo na 0.05, kaya naging C sub 0.025. Hanapin mo ngayon sa table, yung 0.025 na Z value. So, hanapin mo to, kasi yan yung probability, 0.025. So, hanapin mo itong kaakibat na 1.96. So, take note nyo na yan guys para automatic meron na kayo pagdating sa quiz. O kabisaduhin nyo, pag Z sub 0.025, 1.96 na agad yun. Okay? So, gagamitin lang ulit din yan yung equation. Tapos, yung difference ng mga mean ay 0 kasi wala namang given na mean. Okay? So, yan, nakuha na yung z-value na 6.3246. Then, ano nga siya, two-tailed, kaya ang gagamitin natin ay yung dalawang sides. So, itong inuna mo na yung side na ito. Okay? So, yan, ito yung formula, di ba? So, substitute mo muna. Tapos, ito yung pangalawang side. So, substitute lang. Okay? So, ito yung lumabas. Between 4.1406 cm squared at saka 7.8594 cm per seconds pala ito, okay? Per seconds. So, yung p-value naman niya, ito 'di ba yung formula sa p-value times 2. So, yung p-value niya, dahil lang nakuha mo doon ay 6.3246 doon sa computation, matik na equal sa 0 yung ano niya, yung p-value. Kasi, masyadong mataas na to yun, hindi wala to doon eh. So, pag wala sa table, automatic 0 na yung p-value. Pag times 2 mo, 0 pa rin. Okay? So, ito na. Step 4, yung drawing. So, itong 1.96, dalawa yan. Kasi nga, two-tailed ito. Tapos yung na-compute natin na 6.3246, na siyempre, mas mataas dito. Pag dito naman, negative, dito rin yun. So, nasa loob siya ngayon ng rejection area. Tapos, ito yung pagitan nitong dalawa. 0 lang naman kasi ito eh. So, hindi pa rin siya kasama dun sa pagitan ng dalawa. Okay? So, step 5, yan. Dahil gina-compute natin na z-value ay nandun sa rejection area, reject na yung null hypothesis. Tapos, wala sa loob itong x sub 2 minus x, or mu sub 2 minus mu sub 1 equal 0. So, reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. Tapos, yung p-value 0 ay syempre less than doon sa alpha na 0.05, kaya reject pa rin. Okay? Null hypothesis. So, based on the evidence presented, we therefore need to reject the null hypothesis and not to reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 95% confident that the propellants do not have the same mean burning rate. Okay? So, yun yung ibig sabihin ng alternative. They don't have the same burning rate. Since we have rejected the null hypothesis that the mean lifetime is equal to 0, then the null hypothesis for the second test will be different. We will have two options in stating the hypothesis. So, kasi dahil nga two-tailed siya, so, magte-test tayo ulit kasi nga na-reject natin yung null hypothesis dun sa una. Diba ganoon naman yung two-tailed. So, yung una, option 1, sa null hypothesis ay, yan, same lang yung HO, tapos yung H1 ay magkaiba. Ito ay greater than, ito naman ay less than. So, papatunayan mo kung greater than ba o less than. Okay? So, yung given. Tapos, substitute sa formula. Okay, dito ay less than. Kaya ito yung ginamit na side. Ito naman plus. Kasi greater than, ito yung ginamit na side. Okay, so magkaiba sila ng p-value. Yung isa, 0. Isa naman, 1. 100%. Okay. So, ano lumabas? Yung ito. Okay, yung option 1. Kasi sa reject eh. Okay. So, since the t-statistics, so dito guys, sa option 1, nasa loob siya ng rejection area. So, reject. Dito naman sa pangalawa, so reject din siya. So, sumunod, not within siya. Sa option 1, kaya reject. Sumunod, so, ito naman ay within. Sa sumunod. So, nasa loob si mean. Yung difference ng mean. Kaya, ito ay reject or not to reject. Okay? So, not to reject ito guys kasi ano siya eh. Nasa within. Okay? Next, ito ay reject siya guys kasi less than yung probability nito. Ito naman ay greater than kaya not to reject. Okay? So, therefore, we are 95% confident that the burning rate of propellant 2 is greater than of the propellant 1. So, yun yung ibig sabihin ng H1. Kasi na-reject natin yung H dito eh. Ito naman. Therefore, we are 95% confident that the burning rate of propellant 2, okay, is greater than that of propellant 1. Okay? So, dito guys, pareho naman sila ng conclusion. Yun nga lang, mas accurate tong isa kasi puro to reject eh. Pagdating kasi ito sa isa, may reject, tapos merong not to reject, tapos may reject. Okay? Ito mas accurate tong option 1. Mean of two samples variances unknown and equal. So, n sub 1 is less than 30 and n sub 2 is less than 30. Okay, we now consider test of hypothesis on the difference in means of mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2 of two normal distributions where the variances are unknown. Okay? So, so kanina guys ay known, ngayon naman unknown. Okay? A, T statistic will be used to test this hypothesis. Two different situations must be treated. In the first case, we assume that the variances of the two normal distributions are unknown but equal. That is, sigma sub 1 squared is equal to sigma sub 2 squared is equal to sigma squared. So, dito guys, gagamit na ng T statistics o yung T table. In the second, we assume that sigma sub 1 squared and sigma sub 2 squared are unknown and not necessarily equal. Let us start with the first one. Itong una, yung pooled standard deviation or S sub P. When several sets of data can be thought of as having been generated from the same pool, it is possible to combine them usually for purpose of estimating standard deviation. Okay, so pag yung mga data ay nasa isang pinagkuhanan lang, so pwede siyang ipag-combine para makuha lang ng ng standard deviation. Because these sigmas are equals, combining two sets of samples to estimate the standard deviation is possible. Okay? So this estimated standard deviation is called pooled standard deviation. At ito yung formula niya guys. Okay? Where V is equal to n sub 1 plus n sub 2 minus 2 degree of freedom. Okay, so yung V sa baba, sa denominator. So next is yung confidence interval. So confidence interval, siguro din, two sides din yan. Yan nga lang, T value na to. Okay? Or T, nasa T table na. Next, one-sided lower confidence interval. Pag lower yan, may minus or sa left. Pag upper naman yan, plus yan. Okay, so right. So, punta tayo sa example. Students may choose between a 3-unit course in physics without labs and a 4-unit course with labs. Okay, so the final written exam is the same for both sections. If 12 students in the section with labs made an average examination grade of 84 with a standard deviation of 4, and 18 students in the section without labs made an average grade of 77 with a grade deviation of 6, find a 99% confidence interval for the difference between the average grades for the two courses. So assume the population to be approximately normal distributed with equal variances. So for the solution, ayan, given muna, ilagay mo natin yung mga given. N sub 1, 12 students, x bar, 84, x sub 1 bar, 84, okay? Pag small letter s, guys, ibig sabihin yan, standard deviation, okay? Tapos yung a, alpha, 0.01, or 99% confidence level. Tapos ito yung v, yung n sub 1 plus n sub 2 minus 2. Yan yung degrees of freedom, 28. Tapos dito, kasi two-tail dito, yung interval na to. So, ayan, dinivide sa 2 yung alpha. Okay, so yung kaakibat niya na t-value ay ito, 2.763. Then, substitute lang natin sa formula dito sa pooled standard deviation. Okay, nakuha natin ay 5.3050. Tapos, substitute naman natin dito sa sa formula ng confidence interval kasi kailangan dyan yung S sub P. Yan, okay, so ito yung nakuha. Between 1.5374 and 12.4626. Okay, so this means that we are 99% confident that the difference between the final exam grades between students with lab and without lab is between these values. Using this computation alone, we can say that the students with lab have higher final exam grades as compared to those students without lab. Okay? Kasi nga naman, kapag minus mo yun, yung mean, yan, positive pa rin. Okay? In between positive sila. Kaya mas malaki yung dito sa with lab, sa mu sub 1. Ngayon, sa paggamit naman ng minitab para makuha yan, okay, so pipiliin nyo is yung stat, basic statistics, tsaka 2 sample t. Yun yung pipiliin nyo. Okay, 2 sample t. Tapos input into the following information. Yan, summarize data. Tapos sample size, lagay nyo dun sa sample 1, 12. Yung una kasi 12 eh. Sample mean niya 84. Standard deviation niya 4. Yung pangalawa naman na sample, 18. Yung sample size, 77 naman yung sample mean. Sumunod, yung standard deviation, 6. Okay? Then, click options ito. Then, lalagay mo dito sa confidence level, 0.99. Sa hypothesized difference, kasi nakalagay, wala silang difference kasi yun yung gusto mong itest eh. Okay? So, sa alternative naman, syempre may difference. So, not equal sila. Okay? Not equal sila. Then, click, check nyo tong assume equal variances. Then, click OK. So, ito yung lalabas. Ayun, yung 99% CI for the difference. Yung kinupit nyo, yun yan, Okay, tapos yung sa test statistic, yan na rin. Next, test of hypothesis na. So, ito naman, guys. Yan, yung formula dito ay halos same lang. Dito nga lang, T na yan, T. Tapos, pinalitan lang yung sigma dito ni SP. Okay? So, same lang yan doon sa nauna. Halos same lang. Pero dito, T-table yung gagamitin natin. Sa P value, it is the exact significance level of statistic test. So, same lang yan, guys. Tapos, ito yung formula. Tapos, ito yung mga decision. So, example na tayo. To find out whether a new serum will arrest leukemia, 9 mice, all with an advantage stage of disease, are selected. 5 mice received the treatment and 4 do not. Survival times in years from the time the experiment commenced are as follows. So, ito yung mga nag-survive nung treatment. Okay? Tapos, ito naman yung no treatment. At 0.05 level of significance, can the serum be said to be effective? Assume the two distributions to be normal distributed with equal variances. Okay? So, for the solution, syempre, hypothesis test na to, i-formulate mo natin yung HO tsaka H1. So, sa HO, lagi namang una yon, yung treated tsaka untreated, ayan, pag ma-minus lang equal 0. So, may sabihin yan, the serum is not effective kasi same lang naman, equal 0. Walang difference, kumbaga. Because the survival times of the mice with treatment are the same to those with no treatment. Siyempre, laging H1, yung kinokontra nyo yung HO. Kaya yung mu sub T, yung may treatment, minus mu sub NT, or yung walang treatment, ay greater than 0. Sabihin, mas effective yung yung serum kasi kapag minus mo yan, magiging greater than 1 eh. Okay? So, step number 2, ilagay nyo lang yung mga given. Ayan, yung N sub T, 5 mice. Tapos, ito yung mga may treatment, kaya N sub T. Tapos, ito yung kanilang average. So, ito, kukompute mo lang dito, i-average mo lang sa treatment. Tapos, ito naman yung mice. Tapos, ito naman, average niya yung mga untreated. Kukompute mo lang. Tapos, ito, SNT. So, ito, kukompute mo lang yung standard deviation. Okay? So, alam nyo na mag-compute nyan, di ba? Sa calcu, yung standard deviation. So, ang pipiliin nyo nandun yung may dalawang column for x and y kasi dalawa to eh. Okay? So, V is equal to Ayan, yung degree of freedoms yan, 7. Tapos yung alpha, 0.05 o 95% confidence level. Tapos, ito ay, ayan, one-sided lang siya kaya hindi na dinivide sa 2 yung 0.05. Tapos kasama niya yung degree of freedoms niya. So, ito yung value mula sa table. Pag hinanap mo yung 0.05 tapos 7 na degree of freedoms. Okay? Or yung 7 na n doon. Sa step 3, kukumpitin tong pooled standard deviation. Yan, substitute lang. Tapos, kumpitin mo rin itong t. Okay? So, ito na nga yung t-value. Tapos, dito naman ang kinumpute ay yung confidence interval. So, bakit ito ganitong sign? Kasi, babalik ka dito sa H1 lagi. Titingnan mo yan. Yung open niya, side, ay nandito sa mu. Okay, sa difference ng mga mu's. So, dito rin dapat yung open side sa difference ng mga mu's. Okay, kaya ganon. So, ayan. Substitute lang yung mga given. Okay, so nakuha mo to. Negative 1.3431 years. Yan, less than. So, yan. Tapos next, kumpitin lang yung p-value. Okay? So, ang katumbas nito sa table ay ito. Ito yung katumbas niya na p-value and gumamit ng interpolation. Okay? Tapos ito ay round off lang. Kasi ito yung sa drawing niya. Kasi ito nga greater than H1, di ba? H1 greater than. Kaya dito siya sa kanan. So ito yung okay, so dito yung sa problem ay 1.895 yung given. Okay, yung nakuha natin. Tapos yung nakuha naman sa computation ito 0.6990. Okay? Dito yung sa t-value. So outside siya, guys. Okay? Wala siya sa rejection area. So dito naman, yan nasa loob naman yung mu, difference ng mu. So dito, since the t-statistics nga itong 0.6990 ay outside, okay, or not in the rejection region, itong kulay blue, therefore, we need not to reject. So, hindi natin i-reject yung null hypothesis. Okay? Siyempre, i-reject yung alternative. So, since the null hypothesis, yan, is within the confidence interval, therefore, we need to reject. Or we need not to reject kasi nasa loob siya. Hindi mo siya i-reject. Okay? Kasi yung p-value naman ay greater dun sa 0.05. So, not to reject ulit. Kasi greater eh. So, yan. Based on the evidences presented, we therefore need not to reject the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 95% confident that the serum is not effective because the survival times of the mice with treatment are the same with those with no treatment. So, yun yung sinasabi lang doon sa HO. Kasi, hindi mo siya na-reject eh. So, siya yung magiging conclusion mo. So, pag ginamit mo naman yung minitab, so, i-input mo lang yung mga data doon, yung treatment, tsaka no treatment. Okay? Per column. Tapos, select mo yung stat, tapos select mo yung 2 sample T. Tapos, select mo lang dito, each sample is in its own column. Ayan. Okay? And sample 1, ayan, treatment. Tapos, sample 2, no treatment. So, click mo lang yung option. Confidence level niya, 95. Hypothesis difference, 0.0. Tsaka, alternative hypothesis, ayan, difference is greater than hypothesis difference. Tapos, check mo yung assume equal variances. Let's click, okay. Yan, nakita nyo dito na yung mga results kanina. Yan, meron kang descriptive statistics. Okay, yung mean, standard deviation, tsaka yung SE mean. Tapos ito yung pooled 95% lower bound. Ayan yung na-compute mo dun sa confidence interval. Okay, so ito naman sa test of hypothesis. Ayan. Diyan yung t-value, diyan yung degree of freedom, tsaka p-value, yung probability, diyan na rin. Okay? So, next, consider the hypothesis test. And mu sub 1 equals mu sub 2 against h1. Mu sub 1 is less than mu sub 2. Suppose that the sample size, dito guys, yung mga given, okay? So, binigay na lang dito, hindi na gumawa ng problem, okay? So, yan. Yan, given na yan. Yung H1, pati itong mga given. Tapos, one-tailed din siya kasi less than lang sa H1. Yan, substitute lang dun sa formula na pull the standard deviation. Tapos sa T, formula. Okay? So, 0 pa rin tong mu. Difference kasi wala namang given na mu. Siya, negative 1.9356. So, dito sa confidence interval, bakit? Yan. Pa-less than, okay? Pa-less than yung pinili. Kasi nga dito, yan, yung buka nung sign, nandun sa, palayo, wala dun sa difference ng dalawa. Kaya ganun din, same lang. Okay? So, nakuha dyan, pagka-substitute ay negative 0.5146. Then, kumpitin yung p-value since, ano siya, sa right side siya. Or, so, dito guys, kaya malilito, yung rule dito, yan kapag naging left-tailed, yan left-tailed, nagma-minus 1. Okay? So, kaiba siya dun sa una, yung sa z. Okay? So, titingnan nyo yung rule na yon. Tapos dito, yan, kasi nga left-tailed, nag-minus 1. Ayan. So, 1 minus, ito, yung probability nito. So, hanapin yung probability niya sa z-table. So, gagamit ka pa interpolation kasi walang saktong ganyan. So, ang makukuha doon na ito, 0.0331. Minus mo yun sa 1. So, ito, or, ayun na mismo yung nakuha. Okay? No, minus sa 1. So, whatever yung nakuha ang probability dyan. So, dito guys, napansin nyo, diba, dito, negative 1.9356. So, same lang kasi siya guys, kapag tinignan mo sa t-table, okay, sa t-table lang to sa t-table, same lang siya pag tinignan mo sa positive 1.9356. Okay, kaya kinuha na lang yung positive niya. Kasi magiging same lang siya na 0.03315. Ibig sabihin, yung difference ng dalawa na to guys, okay, instead na mag-minus ka, pwede, automatic, na kunin mo na lang agad yung probability nito, nung positive nito. Okay, equals na siya dito sa dalawa pag nag-minus. Gets? Kaya 0.03315 yung p-value. Tapos, ito na yung sa drawing. Ito yung nasa table, yung negative 1.313. Okay? Ito. From the table. Tapos, ito yung nakuha natin sa computation, yung negative 1.9356. Okay? So, within the rejection area siya. Tapos, ito yung confidence interval. Ayan. So, mula negative 0.5146. Okay? So, pumunta siya dito sa left. Kasi nga, left-tailed siya. Okay? So, step 5, since the test statistic T, okay, is within. So, nasa loob siya. Yun, So, ibig sabihin, reject the null hypothesis. Tapos, yung difference naman ng mga mu's ay not within. Okay? So, we need to reject pa rin. Okay? Kasi not within Tapos, since p-value for test is less than, okay, yung given na alpha, need pa rin, okay? Reject pa rin the null hypothesis. Okay? So, based on the evidence presented, we therefore need to reject the null hypothesis and not to reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 90% confident that mu sub 1 is less than mu sub 2. Gusto naman pag gumamit ng minitab, yan, summarize data again. Tapos, lagay mo 15, 15. Sample mean, 6.2, 7.8. Standard deviation, 2 and 2 and 2.5. Tapos, click mo lang options. Tapos, sa confidence level, 90. Hypothesize, difference, 0. Sabihin, ito yung maging HO yan. Kaya 0. Kasi laging 0 naman HO. Tapos, alternative hypothesis, yan, less than. Tapos, assume equal variances. Click OK. Ito na lumabas, meron kang diyang descriptive statistics. Tapos ito na yung confidence interval mo. Tapos lumabas sa'yo, di ba? Yung full 90% upper bound. Tapos yung test. Yung test of hypothesis. Ito yung nakuha mong t-value, degree of freedom, and the probability value. Okay? So next problem. The overall distance traveled by a golf ball is tested by hitting the ball with iron bar. A mechanical golfer with a swing that is said to emulate the legendary champion Byron Nelson. So, may machine na ginagamit sa pag-hit ng ball. 10 randomly selected balls of 2 different brands are tested and the overall distance measured. Okay, so, iti-test yun, yung mga iba't ibang brand. So, the data in meters follow. So, ito yung dalawang brand na yun. Ito yung mga measurements nila na inabot nung pinalo nung equipment na yun. So, test the hypothesis that both brands of the ball have equal mean over all distance. So, use 0.05 yung alpha. So, ito na nga yung first step. Ilagay nyo yung HO. Yan, laging equals yan. So, both brands of ball have equal mean over all distance. Tapos, ito namang H1. Yan, mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2. Yan, not equal naman. Kabaligtaran lang ng H sub 0. Kasi nga, two-tailed to eh. Equal lang naman yung ano niya, two-tailed. Wala naman sinabing less than o greater than. Kaya two-tailed. So, step 2 yan, yung mga given. Tapos yung value ng alpha dito, dinivide sa 2 para makuha yung value ni T. Okay? Yan, naging 0.025 tsaka 18, yung degree of freedom. So, yan, 2.101. So, yung mga given na to guys, pwede nyo itong i-note para sa test nyo. Alam nyo na agad. Hindi na kayo pupunta sa table. Step 3, substitute lang dun sa S sub P. Okay? Tapos, substitute din dun sa T value. So, 0 din yung difference ng mga mu. Okay? So, nakuha ay T is equal to 2.5576. So, dahil nga two-tailed siya, gagamitin natin yung dalawang side nitong confidence interval. Substitute lang yung nakuha mo dito sa SP tsaka dito sa T. Okay? So, ito, lumabas. Dalawang side. So, yung p-value naman, ito yung computation niya, times 2. Okay, yung nakuha mo doon, yung p-value niya, okay, ay 0.009914. Gamit yung table, tapos nag-interpolation pa. Kasi walang saktong ganyan. Okay, or ganito, na 2.5576. Tapos, multiply mo lang sa 2, yun na yung magiging p-value niya. Tapos, round up na lang, 0.0198. So, 4 decimal place. So, step 4, yan, two sides yan kasi two-tailed. Tapos, within the rejection area or region naman siya, nasa loob siya. Yung na-compute natin na T value. Kasi ito naman, hindi niya nasama yung mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2. So, since the T statistics ay nasa rejection area nga, so, reject the null hypothesis. Tapos, yung difference naman ni mu sub 1 and mu sub 2 ay wala dun sa confidence interval, so, reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. Tapos, yung p-value ay less than sa alpha, so, reject pa rin yung null hypothesis. So, based on the evidences presented, we therefore need to reject the null hypothesis and not to reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 95% confident that the two brands of ball do not have equal mean overall distance. Okay, so yun lang yung sinasabi ng H1. So, gamit yung Minitab 19, input nyo yung mga measurement kay brand 1 tsaka brand 2. Tapos, ganun lang ulit, stat, basic statistic, to sample T. Tapos yan, input nyo lang yan. Okay, brand 1 tsaka brand Z. Then, click options. Yan, confidence level, hypothesis difference 0. Tapos yan, not equal kasi two-tailed. Tapos, check yung assume, equal variances. Tapos yan yung lumabas yung mga descriptives niya. And ito yung sa may confidence interval. Okay? Tapos sa hypothesis, yan yung t-value, degree of freedom at probability value. Yan, since we have rejected the null hypothesis nga kasi two-tailed to, magkakaroon tayo ng isa pa dito. Okay? So, yan, step 1 tsaka step 2. So, same lang naman sila sa HO, sa step 1, dito lang sila nagkaiba. Kasi dito sa option 1, greater than, dito naman ay less than. So, dito sa step 2 naman, same lang yung given. Okay? So, substitute the value. Yan, same lang yung nakuha. Tapos, dito naman, siyempre magbabago na kasi magkaiba sila ng sign sa confidence interval. Tapos, magbabago na rin siyempre probability value. Okay? So, dito lumalabas sa isa, nasa loob siya ng rejection area. Isa naman hindi. Okay? So, ito yung conclusion. So, dito sa una, nasa loob kasi siya ng rejection area, kaya reject the null hypothesis. Sa sumunod, not to reject naman to kasi nasa labas siya. Tapos, sumunod, yung difference ng mu sub 1 at saka mu sub 2 ay is not within dito. Okay? Kaya reject pa rin siya. Dito naman ay within. Okay? Kaya not to reject. Sumunod, so puro not to reject ito reject. Sumunod ito yung p-value ay less than dun sa alpha. Kaya to reject to, need to reject. Ito naman ay greater than dun sa alpha, kaya not to reject. Napansin nyo, ito reject, ito naman not to reject. So, therefore, we are 95% confident that brand 1 of balls has greater than overall distance of compared to the brand 2. Okay? Kasi, dito ay greater than So, greater than nga siya. So, same lang din naman yung magiging conclusion dito kasi less than naman. Sabihin, less than si brand 2 kay brand 1. Okay? So, ito yung sa, sa Minitab. Punta tayo ngayon sa mean of two samples, variances unknown and unequal. So, paano naman pag variances unknown tsaka unequal pa? Tapos, yung n sub 1 niya less than 30, tapos n sub 2 less than 30. Okay? In some situation, we cannot reasonably assume that the unknown variances, sigma squared sub 1 and sigma squared sub 2 are equal. So, there is not an exact statistic available for testing HO mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2 equals d sub 0 or yung difference nila in this case. However, an approximate result can be applied. So, T statistic can be used with a degree of freedom. So, mababago lang guys yung degree of freedom niya. Okay, so medyo komplikado yung computation niya. Pero yun yung sa degree of freedom or yung V. So, if B is not an integer, run up to the nearest integer. So, i-round up lang natin pag di siya integer. So, next, confidence interval niya. Yan yung formula. Tapos, one-sided lower confidence interval. Ito naman, upper naman. Okay? Tapos, yung test of hypothesis. Ayan yung formula pa rin niya. Same lang. Yung V lang na bago, di ba? Okay? Tapos, sa p-value, pareho lang ba? O pareho lang din, no? Yung computation, tsaka yung decision. Okay? So, tayo sa example. So, the following data represents the running times of films produced by two motion picture companies. So, yan, 1 and 2 company. Tapos, ito yung time minutes. Okay? So, test the hypothesis that the average running time of films produced by company 2 exceeds that of company 1 by 10 minutes. Okay? So, use a 0.10 level of significance and assume the distribution of times to be approximately normal with unequal variances. Okay, so solution. Ayan. So dito guys, ang tinatanong kasi ito, diba, ito-test mo daw. Kaya, ito-test mo daw na yung company 2 exceeds of company 1 by 10 minutes. Kaya pansin mo, kasi kung ano yung tinetest guys, siya yung maging HO mo, yung null hypothesis. So yan, hindi na yan 0 guys. Ayan o, equal siya sa 10 minutes. Yan, company 2 does not exceed that of company 1 by 10 minutes. Yan guys, kaya siya equal sa 10 minutes kasi ibig sabihin, hindi siya lumagpas ng 10 minutes yung lamang ni company 2. Dito naman kasi greater than 10 minutes. Ibig sabihin, lumagpas siya. Ayan o, exceeds o lumagpas nung 10 minutes. Okay? So, yun yung tinatanong. So, step 2, yun yung mga given. Okay? So, ito yung N ni company 1, ito naman yung X bar ni company 1, tapos yung sample standard deviation ni company 1. Okay, so yung mga yan guys, kinukumpit yan. Hindi giniben. Kasi dito mo lang naman kukunin yun sa mga data dito. Tapos yung N ni company 2, 7 films. Tapos yung X bar naman ni company 2, yan, kinumpit din, tsaka yung standard deviation. Okay, tapos, yung mga yung kasi, kailangan mo dito sa pagkukumpit ng V. Okay, yung formula. Ayan o, 7.19, kaya yung sabi diba kanina, magra-round up ka. So, 7 na lang sa whole number. As yung alpha naman dyan ay 0.10 o 90% confidence level. So, yan. Dito, hindi na dinivide yung A kasi nga, one side lang to, okay? Yan o, greater than lang. Kaya yung katumbas nito na 0.10 tsaka 7 degree of freedom sa t-table ay 1.415. Okay? So, ready na para isolve yung t-statistic, tinatawag, or yung t-value. So, same lang yun. T-statistic, t-value, same lang. Yan, substitute lang yung mga given. Okay? So, tapos dito guys, pansin nyo, meron tayong d sub 0. Ano yung d sub 0? 10. Kasi ito yun yung ginibin dito Ayan equals 10 siya. Di ba madalas 0 lang yan? Kaya 0 rin nandito sa computation. Ngayon kasi meron na siya 10. Kaya 10 yun. Okay? Tapos, ito yung ginamit na side kasi nga, yung naka-open nandito sa difference nila. Kasi pagdating dito kasi yung naka-open nandito rin sabihin greater than. Okay? So, mas malaki to. Kaya, yun yung ginamit. Okay? Tapos, substitute lang yung value. So, ayan yung nakuha. Negative 5.7649 minutes less than dun sa difference. So, yung p-value, so, ayan, kinuha lang yung katumbas na probability value nung nakuha na t-statistic itong 0.1811. Yung katumbas niya ito, 0.427422. Okay? So, yan, ano lang, nilowest term lang or niround up lang sa 4 decimal place. Okay? So, step 4, yan, drawing. Kasi nga, nandito siya sa, kasi greater than, di ba? O sino nasa kanan. Tapos, ito yung 0.1811 o 11. Okay? So, hindi siya pasok doon sa rejection kasi andito yung sa given 1.415. Ayan Hindi siya pasok. Tapos, doon sa confidence interval, pasok yung difference. Okay? Yung mean. Okay? Pasok siya. So, since bakit siya naging pasok? Kasi dito yung negative, di ba? 5.76449. So, ito ay greater than to, di ba? So, papunta ngayon siya dito, sa kanan. Kasi pakanan yan Okay? Papakanan yan. Kasi, pagdating kasi dito, di ba, greater than. So, right side siya ng papunta siya sa right side, okay, ng distribution, kaya kanan, kasama yung mean dun sa gitna. So, dahil nga yung t-statistics wala dun sa rejection region, so, hindi i-reject yung null hypothesis, okay? Tapos, dito naman, dahil nga kasama yung difference ng mga mean or ng mga mu, okay? So, dun sa interval, hindi rin i-reject yung not to reject the null hypothesis, okay? Tapos, yung p-value ay greater than dun sa alpha. So, not to reject din. Okay? So, based on the evidences presented, we therefore need not to reject the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. This means that we are 90% confident that the serum is not effective because the survival times of the mice with treatment are the same with those with no treatment. So, ito guys, sinabi mo lang dito yung null hypothesis mo. Okay? Kasi hindi mo nga siya na-reject. Ibig sabihin, yung magiging conclusion mo dyan, yung null hypothesis. Tapos, using Minitab 19, input the row data and column. So, input mo lang, mga data. Tapos, ganoon din ulit, stat, basic statistic, tapos 2 sample t. Okay? Input the following information, yung mga in-input mo doon. Okay? Tapos, option, click option. So, same lang guys sa kanina, di ba? Same lang yung mga in-input. So, be mindful lang doon sa input nyo. Kasi ito naman greater than. Okay? So, ayan yung descriptive statistics niya. Ayan yung mga mean and standard deviation tsaka SA mean. Tapos, ito yung magiging sa confidence interval. Okay? Tapos, ito yung mga ito yung t-value, yung degree of freedom. Diba? Tama. Tapos, yung probability value. Okay? So, another example guys. So, marami tayong example dito. An article in IEEE, International Symposium on Electromagnetic Compatibility. Yan. Ito yung reference niya. Quantified the absorption of electromagnetic energy and the resulting thermal effect on cellular phones. Okay? So, yung effect daw nun sa cellular phones. The experimental results were obtained from in vivo experiments conducted on rats. Okay? So, arterial blood pressure's value, mmHg, yung unit niya, for the control group, 8 rats, during the experiment, Rx bar, x sub 1 bar is equal to 90. Tapos yung S sub 1 is equal to 5. Okay? And for the test group, 9 rats are x sub bar sub 2 is equal to 150. S sub 2 is equal to 10. So, yun na guys, nandiyan yung mga given. So, ito yung tinatanong. Is there evidence to support the claim that the control group has lower mean blood pressure? So, lower guys. Ibig sabihin, magle-less than tayo dito. Tapos, use alpha 0.05. Assume that both populations are normally distributed but the variances are not equal. Okay? So, para sa solution niya, ayan, HO mo. Okay? So, the mean blood pressure of the control group is not lower. So, not lower siya kasi equals lang. Okay? Magsi-0. Ito na less than na kasi lower nga sinasabi. Okay? Tapos ito yung mga binanggit doon. Kunin mo lang yung mga given. Okay? So, given na yan lahat. Ang isusolve mo lang itong V o yung degree of freedom. Okay? So, 12. Tapos, yung 0.05 di na dinivide sa 2 kasi nga, ano lang siya, isang tail lang siya, left lang. Okay? Less than. So, next. Ayan, nakita to sa table. Yung corresponding nitong 0.05 na probability tsaka degree of freedom na 12. So, pwede natin i-solve yung T or yung T statistics or yung T value. T critical value. So, guys, maraming tawag dyan. T statistics or the statistic. Tapos, T value o T critical value. So, same lang yun. Yan, negative 6.6259. Okay? So, dahil nga one-tailed lang siya, so ito pipiliin mo yung mayroong less than in reference dito sa difference. Okay? So, yan, substitute lang. Okay, so ito yung nakuha. Negative 18.2764 mmHg. So, don't forget yung unit. Okay, kahit nga dito sa HO tsaka H1 may unit yan, guys. Kaya don't forget. So, next, the p-value. So, ito, guys, kasi nga, ayan, kaya, kasi nga, nandito siya, okay, less than, so, diba, dun sa formula, magma-minus 1, okay, dito sa T computation natin, so, yan, nagma-minus 1, so, yung corresponding na probability nito, okay, diba, sabi natin, yung corresponding nito is yung positive value lang nito, okay, hindi mo na kailangan mag-minus 1, kunin mo na lang yung corresponding probability value nung positive niya, which is 0. Kasi nga, mataas na to, wala siyang katumbas na probability doon sa T table, okay? So, matic 0 na yun. Okay? So, pag plinat natin, kasi nasa left nga siya, less than, ayan, negative 6.6259. So, under pa rin siya nito, nung given natin, nung nakuha natin sa given na negative 1.782 ito. Okay? Kasi nasa left kaya negative. Okay? Tapos, yung ating interval naman, ayan, mula dito sa negative 18.2764, nakalagay less than, diba? So, papunta sa kaliwa, less than, tsaka left kasi, left-tailed So, papunta sa kabila. So, hindi nakasama yung, eto, okay, yung mean, yung difference ng mean. So, ang ibig sabihin lang yan ulit, guys, dahil nga, so, dito guys, may typo ka, nakalagay is not the rejection region. So, dapat is in the rejection region kasi nasa loob siya ng rejection region Okay? Therefore, kailangan i-reject mo yung null hypothesis. Okay? Tapos, dahil nga yung yung mu, ay wala dun sa loob. Okay? So, wala dun sa loob ng confidence interval. Okay? So, i-reject din yung null hypothesis. Tapos, yung p-value na 0.00, less than siya kaysa alpha, kaya i-reject din yung null hypothesis. Okay, so napansin nyo guys yung kung paano mag-solve. Okay? So, same lang din yan guys yung magiging conclusion dyan. So, this means that we are 95% confident that the control group has lower mean blood pressure than the test group. So, dito, sinabi lang yung pinaka-conclusion ng HO kasi hindi mo siya ayan, not to reject, okay? Or sinabi lang dito guys, okay? Sinabi lang yung H1 kasi na-reject yung null hypothesis, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, pipili mo yung H1. So, sinabi lang dito yung H1. Okay? So, using the Minitab, so, summarize data, ilalagay mo lang dyan So, pansin nyo guys, pag walang given na mga values, kay yung tabular, direkta ka na sa ganito. Okay? To sample t for the mean. Summarize data. Ayan, input mo lang yung mga given. Okay? So, be mindful lang dito sa mga sign. Okay? So, okay. Tapos, may kita mo dyan yung descriptive statistic nga niya. Yung para dun sa interval. Tapos, yung sa mga values ng test, ng hypothesis. Okay? Okay, so example number 3 na. The spring-like effect in a golf club could be determined by measuring the coefficient of restitution. So, ano ba yung restitution na yun? Yun yung ratio of the outbound velocity to the inbound velocity of a golf ball fired at a club head. So, yun, ratio siya, guys. So, 12 randomly selected drivers produced by 2 club makers are tested and the coefficient of restitution measured. So, ito yung mga data niya, guys. So, test the hypothesis that both brands of clubs have equal mean coefficient of restitution. So, ayan, test natin kung equal. As alpha ulit, 0.05. Okay? So dito guys, ayan, assume that both population are normal distributed but variances are not equal. Okay? So, sa HO natin, yan. So, yan, both brands clubs have equal kasi equals to 0 lang sila pag may nag-minus. Dito naman, not equal to 0. Sabihin may difference sila, guys. Okay? So, two-tailed dyan, guys, kasi nga, ganyan, not equal. So, yung mga given, ito, i-compute mo, kasi mga ano yun sa tabular value, kaya mag-compute kanyang sample mean, tsaka sample standard deviation. Ayan, x bar para kay n sub 2. Tapos yung, ito, degree of freedom, computein mo rin. So, 21. Yung given na alpha, okay? 0.05. Tapos to di-divide sa 2 yung alpha kasi nga 2 tilde dyan. So, yung corresponding niyan ay ito. 2.0880 na value doon sa table. Ngayon, i-compute natin t-statistic. Okay, so gamit itong formula. So, substitute lang yung mga nakuha natin din or mga given. So, nakuha natin na t ay negative 1.3669. Okay, dahil nga 2 tilde to, gagamitin natin yung both sides ng interval. Okay, substitute. Ayan, between siya dito sa mga values na yan. Tapos, yung formula para sa p-value, i-multiply, di ba? I-multiply yung nakuwang probability, katumbas ng probability na nakuha natin dito. Okay, sa t-statistic. So, ang katumbas niyan, guys, ito, 0.094485 times 2 lang natin. So, siya ay, tas round off sa 4 decimal, guys. So, 0.1890. Okay? Yan, dahil nga total siya, so magkabilang dulo yan, guys, kaliwa kanan. Tapos yan, negative positive yan, okay? Pag kaliwa, negative, pag kanan, positive, okay? So, pansin nyo, yung kinumpit natin ito, yung negative 1.3669, okay? Ito yun, kinumpit natin. So, hindi siya pasok dito sa kulay blue, sa rejection region. Tapos, dito naman sa interval, pasok naman yung mu, yung n sub 1 minus mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2 equals to 0. So, same lang guys yung maging conclusion. Dahil hindi siya pasok sa rejection region, we will not reject the null hypothesis. Okay? Tapos, dahil pasok naman to sa interval, we will not reject rin the null hypothesis. Tapos, dahil yung nakuwang p-value ito, yung 0.1890 ay greater than dun sa alpha, so, we will not reject the null hypothesis. Okay? So, yun lang guys, tatandaan nyo. So, dito, yung magiging conclusion dito ay, syempre, yung HO kasi hindi mo na-reject siya. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, siya yung magiging conclusion mo dito. Okay? So, ito nga, i-input mo yan sa Minitab. Okay? So, same lang kayo na guys, yung, so, naulit-ulit lang naman, di ba? Yung method. Okay? So, yan. So, punta na tayo guys dito sa mean of paired observation. So, paired observation, pairing observations in an experiment is a useful strategy in many fields of application. So, each homogeneous experimental unit receives both population conditions. As a result, each experiment unit has a pair of observations, one for each population. A resulting feature is that n sub 1 always equals to n sub 2. Since the two observations are taken on the same experimental unit, they are not independent. Thus, the effective experimental error variance is reduced. Ibig sabihin guys, hindi sila independent kasi nasa isang experiment lang sila. Ibig sabihin, naapektuhan sila ng isang experiment. So, more or less, meron silang may factor na nakaka-affect sa kanilang dalawa. Okay? Constant factor na yon. So, next, ito yung formula para sa confidence interval niya. Two-sided confidence interval. Yan, where D is the reading 1 minus reading 2. So, pagmaminisin natin. Sunod yung one-sided lower confidence. So, yan, hatiin mo lang sa tag-isa. Kapag lower, ito. Pag upper, ito. So, tatandaan nyo lang yan. Pag may lower, sabihin may minus. Pag upper, yan, may plus. Okay? Tapos, sa test of hypothesis, yung V, or degree of freedom, madali lang. N-1 lang. Tapos, ito yung formula ng T. Okay? So, sa computation naman ng p-value, ayan, tingnan natin na 2-tailed. So, pareho lang, times 2. Pag right-tailed, yan. O, same lang guys sa kanina, di ba? Pag left-tailed, may minus 1. Tapos, yung decision, same lang din. Okay? So, example. In a study conducted by Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, the following data on the comparison between sorbic acid residuals in parts per million in ham immediately after dipping in a sorbate solution and after 60 days of storage were recorded assuming the populations to be normally distributed. Okay, so ito guys, merong mga findings. So for the solution, kasi nga, ang pinapahanap kasi dito, ito, at 0.05 level significance, to say the length of storage influence sorbic acid residual concentration. So, yun guys yung ating itetest. Okay? Kaya nga dito, yung mu sub d mo dyan is equal to 0. Ibig sabihin, the length of storage does not influence sorbic acid. Ibig sabihin, equals to 0 siya. So, no influence siya. Baga, there's no significant influence. Okay? That is the sorbic and residual concentration before, after storage are the same. So, the same siya. Kasi kaya nga siya tinawag na mu sub d, ibig sabihin yung difference ng dalawa. Siyempre, dito sa h sub 1, kabaliktaran naman yung mu sub d naman ay greater than naman. Okay? The length of the storage influence sorbic acid residual concentration. Okay? So, na-influensya niya. Bakit? Kasi greater than eh. The sorbic acid residual concentrations are higher. Pag sinabi mong higher, ayan, greater than yan. O, step 2. Sa step 2 kasi guys, kailangan natin ng difference. Okay? Pansin nyo dito kasi sa given, meron ka lang before and after. So, pag ma-minusin lang natin yung difference. Okay? Kailangan sa computation yan. Tapos ito, d bar, yan, i-average mo lang tong difference. Okay? Tapos kunin mo lang din yung standard deviation niya. Tapos kunin mo na yung degree of freedom, tapos alpha, given yan. Tapos ito, hindi mo na i-divide yung a sa 2 kasi nga, one-tailed lang siya yan. No? Anong tailed siya? O, greater than, ibig sabihin right, di ba? Greater than, so right-tailed. Okay? So, step 3, yan, substitute lang natin sa formula niya ng t. Okay? Yung d bar, ayan, minus d sub 0. O, d sub 0, 0 yan. Kasi nga, pansin nyo dito, sa hypothesis 0, di ba? So, 0 din yan. Yan, yung nakuha mo standard deviation over square root of n. Okay? So, ang t mo ay equals to 4.8862. Okay? Tapos, kukunin mo na ngayon yung interval. So, bakit ganito yung interval? Kasi pansin mo ulit, ayun o, nakabuka dito kay H1 yung opening. Kaya, mangyayari, hanapin mo din yung parte ng interval kung saan nakabuka yung sign. Okay? Kay mu d. Okay? Kay mu d. So, same dapat siya. Okay? So, substitute lang guys yung nakuha d bar, tapos yung t sub a. So, ito nakuha mo ngayon sa interval. 83.0263. Okay? Less than yung mu. So, yung p-value niya ngayon, ito. O, hindi siya nagmamanison kasi nga, right siya. Okay? So, ang katumbas nito, 4.8862 yung nakuha natin dito. So, yung katumbas niya na probability is ito. Okay? Sa table. So, round up lang natin sa 4 decimal place, kaya 0.001. Okay? So, dito sa drawing natin, nandito siya banda. So, pasok siya guys. Okay? Pasok. Nasa right side siya eh. Pasok siya dito sa region. Okay? Kasi greater din siya dito sa nakuha natin sa given. Tapos sa interval naman niya ito, papunta rin siya sa right. Kasi, ano to eh, right-tailed to eh. So, hindi pumasok itong mu sub d is equal to 0. So, yung ating conclusion, dahil nga pasok dito yung test statistic natin, i-reject natin na null hypothesis. Tapos, dahil nga dito, hindi sumama itong mu sub d, kaya reject pa rin. Tapos dahil nga dito, less than yung nakuwang p-value sa alpha na 0.05, reject pa rin. Okay? So, same lang guys yung magiging ano niyan, magiging conclusion, format ng conclusion katulad dun sa taas, okay? So, dito kasi, nireject mo ngayon null hypothesis, ibig sabihin, sasabihin mo lang dito yung H1 o yung alternative hypothesis. So, using minitab naman, so, input mo lang guys, so, nauulit lang. So, dito, paired T guys, kasi nga paired eh. Ibig sabihin, may pinares, okay? Kaya paired T. Yan, input the following. Yan. Each sample is in the column. Yun, before storage, after. So, yan, kinopya mo lang doon sa given yan. Okay, tas input mo lang to, mga given, tas greater than, don't forget. Okay, so then, mapapakita na yung mga descriptive statistics, yung mean, standard deviation. So, even though, ano na yan, given na yan, okay, o nasolve mo na yan sa computation, di ba? Tas itong estimation for paired difference, ito na yung mas, nasa confidence interval na to guys. Okay, tapos yung test naman, test statistic. Ayan, yung mga value ng t-value, yung t-value tsaka yung p-value. Okay, so tama, di ba? So number 2 example, the government awarded grants to the Agricultural Department of universities to test the yield capabilities of 2 new varieties of wheat. Each variety was planted on plots of equal area of each university in the yield in kilograms per plot recorded as. So ayan guys, input ulit. Tapos, test the hypothesis that the yield of both varieties of wheat are the same. Okay? Assuming the difference of the yields. So, ito guys, ang given mo dyan ay alpha. Yan, equals to 0.05. So, pinapatest lang guys kung the same. Ibig sabihin yan equals to 0 or not equal to 0. Okay? So, yan, kukumpitin mo rin ulit yung difference. So, same lang sa kanina. Yun nga lang, two-tailed na to guys. Okay? Two-tailed na siya. Yung alpha mo, divide mo sa 2. Okay? So, yan. Substitute mo lang yung mga nakuha dyan lahat dito sa formula. Tapos, pag nakuha mo na yung t-statistic niya na 1.8209, yan. Substitute mo dito sa magkabilang dulo kasi two-tailed yan eh. Kaya ang dalawa yung nakuha natin, di ba? So, interval siya. So, sa p-value guys, yung formula niya, multiply sa 2. Okay, yung katumbas na value nitong nakuha nating t-statistic. So, yung katumbas niya na p-value sa table ay ito, 0.054222. O gumamit ng interpolation kasi walang saktong 1.8209 eh. Okay? So, minultiply. So, round up mo lang sa 4 decimal place. Kaya 0.1084 yung p-value. Ayan o, magkabilang dulo. So, pansin natin hindi pasok guys. So, pag hindi pasok sa rejection, so, do not reject lang yun guys. Tapos, pasok naman dito, do not reject ulit. Tapos, yung nakuha p-value greater than sa alpha, do not reject lang ulit. Okay? So, pag do not reject, yung magiging hypothesis niya ay, kasi hindi mo na-reject yung HO eh. So, ibig sabihin, yung masasabihin mo dito sa conclusion niya ay, yung sinabi mo dun sa HO. Okay? So, yan, minitab 19, input row data into columns. Yan, input mo ulit. Okay? So, dito guys, basahin natin to. Note that if we have other conclusion, that is to reject the null hypothesis and not the alternative hypothesis, we need to conduct, yan guys, di ba lagi naman ganyan, kapag pag two-tailed, kailangan mo mag-conduct ng second test. Okay? So, using the minitab 19, yan, ginamit yung minitab 19, in-input lang, so same lang kanina guys, yung procedure niya na. O, siba, i-check nyo na lang kung pareho ba yung sagot dito doon sa computation. Okay? So, pang-check tong minitab guys. Okay, sa reflection, yan, reflection, pwede nyo nasagutan yan. Tapos yung lab activity number 8. Okay? So, ito yung references.